introduce yourself.
My name's Mark Blakely.
Hi, Mark. Today we're going to be asking you some questions on reconciliation and forgiveness. So the first question is, how does reconciliation and forgiveness resolve the personal and social sins of our time?
In the simplest form, I think it gives us a new chance, a new day, a new start.
It's a great answer. So, Mark, what do you think the hardest part is when forgiving someone?
Actually doing it. It's easy to say, but it's hard to let go of the feelings or the hurt and move forward.
Have you ever had to forgive yourself?
Probably every day.
Can you expand on that?
Well, there's always shortcomings or things that you would like to do better, or maybe things that you'd like to not have done. So I think it's a constant cycle of learning from those, allowing yourself to process it and hopefully move forward and try not to do it again,
Maybe even the simplest things like not waking up on time.
including not waking up on time, or sleeping in, or hitting the snooze button, or yes, just little things like that. If you beat yourself up about it, that's not very productive. You have to find a way to move forward.
Do you think that some actions are unforgivable?
That's a tough one. I think some are very hard to forgive.
Can you tell me a time that you overcame sin in your life?
Oh boy, I'm sinning all the time still. I sinned a lot more in the past than I do now. Somehow, by the grace of God, I'm hopefully sinning less. And
Do you have a specific time you can remember?
yeah, there were times that I probably didn't think about God and pray enough, and did things that I'm less than proud of, like getting in trouble with the law and hurting those close to me as well as myself.
Thank you.
Do you always forgive someone that has done something wrong for you?
I try to. It's important to me. I think it's the right thing to do if you want to follow Christ's example and be a good Christian. I mean, obviously, we all have failings, and there's some things that can be difficult to let go of, but the goal is always to accomplish that.
Do you ever find it hard to forgive someone?
Absolutely. There are situations where I think we have kind of an inherent desire for justice or fairness or equity, and it can be hard to forgive if we think that we're not going to receive the same from the other person, so that can make things difficult.
How does forgiveness resolve the personal and social sins of our time?
Well, I think we have, an increasingly complex society as we move towards a more globalistic society through, online connections that we have, and just a greater awareness of everything else going on in the world. I think the more we come in contact with a wider community, the more interaction we have with people who are different from us, and that can lead to some tension, some hostility, some misunderstandings. So as everyone gets outside of their small community that they're comfortable with, familiar with, and begin to encounter the wider world, a willingness to look past our own expectations and frustration over people's differences from us and what we might perceive as offenses, that forgiveness becomes really important to be able to continue with meaningful relationships in the wider world.
What are some of the challenges, or why is it hard to forgive someone?
I think we talked about this in an earlier question. There's just that general desire for things to be fair or equal, and if we don't feel that the other person is going to forgive us, or we don't feel they have any regret or sympathy for what they've done to hurt us, that can make forgiveness very difficult. think there's a desire to be right for most people. We want to believe that we were the person who was in the right, and so that forgiveness can be difficult because that means acknowledging the other person's humanity and acknowledging their perspective. I think it can be a matter of pride sometimes, and I think it can just be, I don't think laziness is quite the right word, but to forgive often requires being the one to initiate a repair in the relationship, and most people tend to like other people to start things and just wait for someone else to get the ball rolling. But forgiveness often requires being the one to make the first move to try to set things right.
Okay, last question. Have you ever had to forgive yourself?
Absolutely. Things with my job, with my family, there are times where it can be easy to become frustrated in the classroom as a teacher, just as students neglect to follow through on things or misbehave on certain situations. And there have certainly been times where I think I handled a classroom situation very poorly. And the desire always is to be the best you can for your students. So I think for me and for a lot of my colleagues, we can really be hard on ourselves and dwell on a mistake that we made, a situation we mishandled, because ultimately we know that it was a negative experience or harmful experience for our students. So it can be difficult to forgive yourself for something that you perceive as an ongoing issue for students. Likewise with family, I have 6 siblings that I'm in a lot of contact with, and for the most part we all get along very, very well. But there's some ongoing tensions, there's some misunderstandings, some hurt feelings, and just to recognize that there's situations where I was in the wrong, and so I need to realize, one, that I handled it poorly and try to set the situation right, but often that requires self-forgiveness to try and move past your mistakes if you're going to try and make things better in the future.
Okay, thank you.